Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. We still have a few folks connecting, so we're going to give it another 60 seconds or so before we begin. So everybody sit tight and we'll kick things off in just a minute. Perfect. Well, again, thank you everyone for joining us here today. My name is Ted Denbo with Ray Capital. I'm very excited about our speaker and our topic, which I'll get into in just a moment. A few quick logistics. Everybody is in listen-only mode, but that does not mean you can't ask questions. Please feel free to type them out throughout today's program right in the chat box, which should be on the right side of your screen, and then we'll have plenty of time at the end to answer as many as we can. That being said, I'm very excited about today's topic. We're only a little bit into 2023, and I can say that many people are feeling the stress already of the new year. Being in sales, every year starts at zero, every month starts at zero, every quarter does. So it's a reoccurring theme, and I can only imagine, what it's like on your side of the table as a financial professional, which is why we're excited to have Matt here today, and I'll talk a little bit about him as we introduce him. Obviously you have a lot of stressors in your professional life and your personal life, and then there's the markets, which are quite a ride over the last year or so. So that's why we're really excited about our program today around lowering stress and becoming more resilient. We're very lucky to have Matthew Kansy, a former industry insider who went on to become a health and wellness coach for fellow advisors just like you. He's a registered dietitian and a certified professional trainer and has more than 20 years of experience in the healthcare field. He served as a wellness coach for companies like American Portfolios, Prudential, Nationwide, Equitable, Symetra, Allianz, and Eagle Life, which maybe some of you are currently with today. The topic of Matt's talk today, managing stress and building resilience. He'll present the latest scientific findings on the impact of chronic stress and share simple yet effective strategies without adding complexity to your life. It's a theme we have here at Ray Capital as well. Like I said earlier, we're going to save at least 10 minutes towards the end for questions. So just type them in the little chat box on the right side of your screen, and we'll make sure that we get to as many as we can. So with that, I'm going to turn off my video because I have a face for radio and turn it over to Matt. So Matt, take it away.
Thank you, Ted, and good afternoon, everybody. I hope today finds you well, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak with everybody about this very important topic. I work specifically with financial professionals. I believe in this perspective that you help secure financial future, I help secure health future, and it's been my mission for several years now to try to combine these two topics in order to provide value for your clients, but also working with the professional, you as well. We certainly know that as a corporate athlete, because I certainly hope that everybody on this call considers themselves an athlete, because the amount of stress and the call for performance on you is really second to none. And so in order for you to provide the best services you can to not only your clients, but yourself and your family, we really have to take a look at this modern day environment of this aspect of stress and anxiety and all the pressures that are on us these days. And so throughout today's presentation, I'm going to be talking to you about various aspects of where things went wrong and what you can do to address it. Because let's just face it, a lot of people on this call have developed certain strategies to deal with stress, and they're not always the best choice because it's kind of an investment in diminishing returns from the standpoint of at the moment it's okay, but in the long run, it's actually pulling us down. So I'm just going to minimize my camera screen here, get that out of the way, and we'll get started here. And as Ted mentioned, as we go along, if you have any questions, put them in the question section on the side there. and then we'll be getting to them at the end. I ask you to do that, as the presentation goes, because if you wait to the end to ask your question, sometimes you forget. So just put it in there, and hopefully we can address it, and we'll just go from there. So anyway, what are we going to be talking about today? Well, besides the obvious from the standpoint of stress and building resilience, what fell apart? A lot of what I teach and do comes from our ancestral past. If we look at, say, Thomas Edison, the electric light bulb, as a point in time, as where we really went off on this tangent from more of a natural human kind of where we evolved from getting, sunlight and physical activity and real nutritious, wholesome food, sleep, and so on and so forth. Really, it's been a time and point in a point in time where really everything went off on a different direction. Now, modern day technology advancements, I mean, they're wonderful, they're great, but they've certainly come at a cost. So what I'm going to be talking to you about are these aspects of how do we enjoy our modern day environment, but at the same time rebalance it with some of these fundamentals that are required to be a happy, healthy human being. And so, we're going to talk about the habits that we've developed because of this knee-jerk response to dealing with stress and anxiety, the social impact of what everybody does. We, in our environment, we have a tendency to bring on ourselves as well. How we were entrained in school by our teachers, by our parents and other influencers. We were younger, and believe it or not, in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, we still have some of those adolescent behaviors and mindset and triggers that we take into our adulthood. How do we live more like a human being? Because again, we are humans. We are kind of creatures of this earth, animals, so to speak. But we're highly advanced, and we have a set of skills and bigger brains and all that stuff. And again, we've created this environment that is remarkable and spectacular. But at the same time, we've neglected some of these fundamentals that we must get our fingers back on that pulse in order to learn how to thrive and be strong and resilient. So again, fulfilling that those human needs, and learn how to thrive. Because again, a lot of the things that we do today actually rob us of this kind of strength and resilience that I'm speaking of. And then certainly, how do we get back on track, right? And so, the cost of modern day life, right? So where did we get here? How did we get here? So constant stimulation from not only, TV and TV commercials, but now we have social media, and we have email, and we have texts, and we have iWatches and phones, and life is coming at you at a million miles per hour from all different types of directions. And our brains just aren't really designed to segment all of that. We have this idea of multitasking, but multitasking is truly a myth from the standpoint that you can't do more than one thing at a time, but the ability to switch from one task to another rapidly is where we start to stress out and fall apart. And so with this constant stimulation and this constant, stressors that we've always put on ourselves from the standpoint of performance, how we look, how we act, our wealth, the car we drive, how we're dressed, our timeliness, getting to work or being wherever we need to be. There's just so much relentless, aspects of needing to perform, fear of missing out. And so certainly we have this idea that with texts and emails and social media, that there's always something going on. Basically that's why we take our computers and our phones on vacation, right? So we're not missing anything. Now, I know a lot of people that, unplug completely from, the world when they go on vacations just to come back to 1,000 emails and an overload amount of work. But to be honest with you, there's some strategies to work around that. So again, back to the unrelenting pressure to perform. We're a very competitive species. And, competition's good, and competition can be healthy, but if we don't learn to step back, step away, I even use the term surrender. And, I'll tell you, there's been times where I've been in live groups with people, and I've said, what's the definition, or what if I asked you to surrender? And, everybody kind of gets a little uncomfortable because that's a sense of giving up. And we've always been taught to know, we're either winning or we're losing, and we got to go. And the thing is that's such an unrelenting mindset that it just contributes to such a significant amount of pressure. And so the ability to take a step back temporarily, momentarily, being able to observe our environment, being able to step away. Now, granted, that's basically been, encapsulated into those last few hours of the day in the evening time in front of a TV, as far as like stepping away or unplugging, but I'll be getting into that a little bit. We've developed this aspect of being reactive to our environment and to the people we engage with and to the markets and things like that. We go right into panic mode rather than, again, taking a step back, taking a breath, and being responsive. And so when we have a stimulus, when we have something like, someone cutting you off on the highway, and we immediately slam on the horn and honk and throw an expletive out there, and then in our brain we're imagining that we're pulled over to the side of the highway and we're giving that person what for, and that's a very reactive kind of environment. And believe it or not, there's people that'll happen to, and that'll ruin their whole day. It spikes their cortisol, spikes their anger, and they bring that into the office, they bring that home, and it really creates this domino effect. Rather than learning how to, someone cut you off on the highway, just take a breath, let them go, they're gone, and and just letting that go. And there's more examples out there certainly than someone cutting off on the highway. But again, where are the triggers in your life where you actually have a tendency to react rather than taking a step back and thinking to yourself, was that really that big of a deal? And taking a breath, right? Our egos get in the way and we want to kind of stomp our feet and but again, that does not do us any good, so how do we create this opportunity to create a little bit of space and be responsive to the world? Mental tension, what goes on between the ears, this is the problem, right? The stuff that's between our ears and our mind and our brain, that's the problem. There's no stress out in the world. It's the stimulation that comes at us. That's how we process this information. And the thing is that whatever goes on up in your brain has a downstream effect into your body. And so if I started talking about or asked you to think about all the things that you're worried about in the world, things that make you angry, frustration, hate, all those types of things, those thoughts create neurochemicals and a hormonal cascade that causes your blood pressure to go up. It impacts your respiratory rate, your heart rate, your digestion. And those are just things that we can measure, all the impact it has on your organ system, muscle system gets all tight, right? But if I started talking about love and happiness and golf and your favorite team winning the Super Bowl or all of these things that bring joy and wonder into your heart, that's a different cascade of neurochemicals and hormones. And so your blood pressure goes down, your heart rate goes down, your breathing becomes more easy, your digestion is improved. Being a dietitian, believe it or not, when I work with people and they have digestive issues, a lot of it has to do with stuff that's going on up here. Because when you've got fight, flight, stress going on, your digestive system shuts down, just as an example. And then other things that shut down, like your respiratory rate, when you're dealing with like high intensity stress in your brain, and you actually, your breathing is greatly impacted. And if that's happening throughout the day, that's something that also is going to contribute to high cortisol levels and you not being able to perform. And it's just throwing gasoline on this fire of stress and anxiety. So, you, like I mentioned earlier, you're kind of a product of your environment, how the habits that you've developed, the defense mechanisms that are in your toolbox of how to deal with life. And believe it or not, there's this aspect, there's this term called neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change and to reprocess stimulation. Now, the whole aspect, people will say, oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Sure you can. So don't, if you've said that before and you've kind of just settled in your ways because you've got a hot head or a temper, or you have a tendency to go to worst case scenario mindset, you can change this. It just takes a little bit of time and it takes a little compassion for yourself. So, all right. So the effects of your thought, right? Remember, I talked to you about what happens up here in your brain and how it cascades into your body, right? So you are what you think. And again, it's that perspective that if you're having negative thoughts, your body is going to have a negative response, because it's basically a negative response of anger, hate, sadness, fear is almost like going into battle. And so your pupils dilate, and the impact of your vascular system changes. And again, from your digestive system to your breathing and everything is kind of that emergency situation. See, when we have negative thoughts, it raises our cortisol levels, which is your primary fight, flight, stress hormone. And stress is actually good. We need stress in our life to develop resilience. We need to, but the thing, or to save our lives, right? If you're being chased by a dog, a bear, or a lion, you run away, you defend yourself, and then when the threat goes away, cortisol is supposed to go down. But driving on the highway and email and the stock markets and all these types of things are just constant chronic stressors that keep cortisol at kind of a medium hum. And we're never in that rest, digest, relaxation phase. And so again, the process of your thoughts and how it relates to your body and your health. Now, I'm here in front of you not because of my education and because of my experience in hospitals and healthcare settings. What really led me to be in front of you today are my personal experiences with stress and anxiety. Back in 2008, as a dietitian, I actually took a job as a pharmaceutical sales rep. And it was terrible. Yes, it was lucrative, and I got the corporate card and the car and all that stuff, but boy, it was just a knife fight every day. And in 2008, I was diagnosed. I started that job in 2005, and by 2008, in the beginning of the year, I was diagnosed with cancer. And then so I needed surgery, then I had radiation therapy, and then the company I was working for got bought out by a larger pharmaceutical company, so I lost my job. Then I picked up some side work, and I lifted something too heavy in the wrong way, and I ruptured a disc in my back. And because of that, it was workers' comp. I was put on painkillers and PT for about 6 or 9 months. And then I finally had surgery, but I was still hooked on these painkillers. And this whole cascade of just negative things just came flying down on me, and my life was falling apart. Now, modern medicine was there, Western medicine was there as far as treating the anxiety and treating the cancer and treating my pain and so on and so forth. But the thing that turned it all around, the biggest thing was my lifestyle choices, and certainly how I process my thoughts. And so I started, I moved to California back in like 1990, and I started meditating back then. And during this era in my life around 2008, I kind of fell off of meditation and mindfulness. And we're going to be talking about this a little bit more. But how I was able to spend a little time taking a step back, surrendering for temporary moments of the day, and processing my thoughts and recategorizing the stimulus in my world had such a profound impact on how I think, and then a profound impact on how my body responded. Because I say things like cancer, and so everybody has, like, say, genetic susceptibility to certain diseases and certain health conditions. But cancer is basically there's this great study out of the UK. It was 5,500 people, and all these people were polled. And the last question on the poll was, what do you think caused your cancer? And greater than 85% of them said stress. Now, we know stress's relationship to cancer, cardiovascular disease, metabolic diseases like diabetes, and so on and so forth, and certainly things like blood pressure. Just like I was saying, stress is that primary cause of many health issues. And then this difference between chronic and acute. Chronic is that constant stimulation, that constant worry that just never goes away. We wake up with stress. We turn on the TV, we watch the news, we go to work, we have emails, we've got clients that are worried about the stock market, we've got people we work with that we don't get along with, and we're just basically hobbling through the day. And that's the chronic stress. And as I mentioned, acute stress, this is like little bouts of stress that come and go away. There's a big difference there. Just to give you another perspective here, is stress just isn't mental, it's also physical, like exercise. Like, so if people on this call go to the gym, they work out, they run or whatever, that's a form of stress. So while you're exercising, that's a form of stress you're putting on the mind and the body. And then when you're done with the workout, the stress goes away and it drops. So that's just an example of an acute stressor that actually helps you build resilience and strength. Whereas the chronic stress, again, is just that constant, it just never goes away, it never relents. And the chronic stress is mostly a process of our thoughts. It's not the environment itself. We, going back to the highway scenario, we'll be in traffic and we'll be so stressed out, and we'll be like, white knuckling the steering wheel, and we just can't wait to, like, we gotta go. Whereas the person next to you, the window's down, they're singing, the music's on, they're totally relaxed, right? Now, that's just an example of how you could be in the same environment with two different people and have two different things going on there. So when it comes to stress and when it comes to, our modern day environment, what do you do? What is your go-to when it comes to stress? Because we all deal with it, we all have it, and we've all developed these kind of tools, and to dealing with it. And so our modern day approach is that we have a stressor, we have a negative feeling, right, that rises within us. And then we don't like that feeling. We don't like that what's going on in our mind. We don't like what's the feeling in our body of that kind of tense nervousness. And so we have a tendency to do whatever we need to do to alleviate that. And unfortunately, these modern day approaches to alleviating the feeling, negative feelings or feelings of sadness and fear are things like alcohol, drugs, food, social media, even TV. These are escapes. These are very potent temporary escapes. And we feel good in the moment, or we're distracted in the moment, because social media and visual stimulation like TV, they're just distracting you. It's a puppet show that's happening in your life. But you know that as soon as you put the phone down, or as soon as you turn off the TV, life comes flooding back in. And you're like, oh, and then the mind starts spinning out again, right? And then that's where like alcohol, drugs, and food come in because of the dopamine that is associated with, example, you have stress, and your body's tense, the impact that a glass of wine or a glass of like bourbon or a beer has on that. Alcohol numbs the nervous system. It has an impact on the brain that just kind of relaxes you a little bit, kind of lowers your inhibitions, but that inhibition is also a lowering of caring, right? You're just like, but you deeply care. And then as soon as the alcohol wears off, you're back into that, stressed out situation. And so we have, this is the typical toolbox that most of us have. But the truth is, from a human fundamental standpoint, if you have these tools at your disposal and you practice them somewhat regularly, you can have a humongous impact on how we use some of these modern day approaches, right? Now, they're not sexy, and we've kind of like, because we've turned into, basically dopamine seeking addicts when it comes to like these quick hits, right? But physical activity, when people think of exercise, they think of becoming proficient at an athletic event, or maybe using exercise as a means of burning calories. And on that note, just to let you know that 80% of weight loss is going to happen in the kitchen, not in the gym. You can't outrun a bad diet. But what I learned personally, through the events back in around 2008, 2009, but even in the beginning of COVID, was when COVID started, my business took a huge turn. I created a program called the COVID-19 Personal Defense Plan. It kind of went viral, for the lack of a better term. I was doing between 3 and 5 virtual presentations every day for almost 4 months. After that first week, I would be after my second, presentation of the day, and I would already be daydreaming about a martini. I'm like, oh boy, that drink is just that's gonna set me straight. And I realized that was not a sustainable practice. So I went into my own toolbox and realized that, okay, well, what are my other options here? And so one of the greatest, this is a hard sell, but it works like a charm. And the people that exercise on this call will agree with me 100%, is that what I was doing in between presentations is like one set of maximum push-ups, or holding a plank for a few minutes, or maybe a bunch of body weight squats, going up and down a set of stairs a little bit. What I was doing is I was engaging large muscle groups. I was getting my heart rate up a little bit. My breathing was getting deeper, bigger inhales and deeper exhales. And I'd have a glass of water. And I swear, if you ever try this, it's almost akin to having a drink. It doesn't have that same reward kind of perspective, but as far as shedding off the nervous energy that builds up in your body because of the stuff that goes on between your ears, there's really nothing quite as good as physical activity. Now, going back to that Thomas Edison and the electric light bulb analogy, we spent hundreds of thousands of years on this planet evolving. Up to that point of about 100 years ago, we walked between 6 and 8 miles a day. We lifted, we pulled, we stretched. We basically were very physical creatures. 95% of the workforce was very physical laborious. And so we've been robbed of our basically the necessity of physical activity in our life through advancements in modern day technology. It's like cars, have a car instead of walking, delivery instead of getting out of the house, remote controls instead of getting up to the TV and changing the channel. I think you understand what I'm trying to say here is that, modern day conveniences have just made us lazy. And now, gyms didn't exist 100 years ago, except for like Olympic athletes. Now everybody has these workout programs and gyms because we need to fulfill that desire. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people in the exercise community use gyms and exercise as a means of accomplishing a certain body composition and burning calories. But for me, physical activity is one, if you don't use it, you lose it. As you get older, your mobility. Two, muscle mass. Strength is, muscle mass is the organ of longevity. We need it to order to be happier and healthier and more resilient as we get older. But the most important, the point for this presentation is physical activity and its relationship to our anxiety, our nervous system, stress, even depression. We know that, cultures that have higher levels of physical activity, and it could be gardening and walking and just being outside more and being more, not sitting so much, have lower accounts of anxiety and depression, whereas societies that have lower levels of physical activity have much higher levels of anxiety and depression. It's just a clinical fact. Nutrition, right? You are what you eat. So I love making this bold statement that I guarantee no one on this phone call knows what, real hunger feels like. Bold statement, right? You're like, I'm hungry all the time. Well, believe it or not, most of us are not truly hungry. What we're dealing with is low blood sugar. Low blood sugar is not hunger. Low blood sugar is feed me before I kill you, right? That's an emotional state. And so if you're dealing with a highly processed, refined diet of quick grab and go convenience foods, basically having some form of dessert for breakfast, you're dealing with blood sugar spikes, which you feel good for an hour or two, then a blood sugar drop, which turns off your brain from what you're trying to accomplish, communication with others. And again, it's like you're just food seeking in order to deal with blood sugar issues rather than true hunger issues. And so the quality of your food is going to have a huge impact on your mental state and your ability to deal with stress. Because if you're dealing with blood sugar issues and you're dealing with stock market issues or client issues or kid issues or spouse issues, it's just gasoline on the fire. Attention and mindfulness practice, right? We talked about this from the standpoint of being able to step back. Now, 5+ years ago, the idea of talking about meditation, and I would get these roll the eyes and this kind of woo, tinfoil hat guy here, talking about mindfulness and meditation. But I can promise you now, it's like my toolbox of using this tool and bringing out other people that are high performers in almost any industry, be it arts or athletic and sports or in the corporate world. I always point out like Ray Dalio, right, of Bridgewater. If you've read his book Principles, you'll know that he contributes a huge amount of success in the business world to his mindfulness and his meditation practice. And so creating a little space in the morning and maybe at night of just taking a step back and just kind of being with yourself and listening to your thoughts and feeling your body and just creating an attention practice where you're like focusing on your breath or the moment is a really, really powerful tool to nurture. And it's one thing that if you spend 5 minutes doing it in the morning, and if you do it most days, eventually that's a tool that you can bring into the rest of your day. So when, life, turns on you with the email or whatever the environment is, you can use that tool to take a step back, take a breath, rather than the imagination spinning out on you, and you can learn how to be more responsive to the environment rather than reactive. Because when we're reactive, we have a tendency to say the wrong thing and make the wrong decisions, and which only throws gasoline on our stress fire. And then we start dreaming about that martini all over again. Breathing. Now, this is a huge, huge tool right here. Again, I can talk to you about lots of different aspects around how your breath can have an impact on your brain. Now, we know that like Navy SEALs and first responders, they're taught a very valuable breathing technique called box breathing. And box breathing is a very simple tool where you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, and then hold for 4 seconds. So in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. In and out of the nose, into the belly, in a calm environment. A very simple breathing exercise, a little bit easier, is just monitoring your breath and breathing in for 6 seconds and out for 6 seconds, and creating this metronome of nice and easy, right? Because this is what I love about live environments is I usually ask for a show of hands, who's ever heard of sleep apnea? And almost everybody's heard of sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is when you actually stop breathing in the middle of the night while you're sleeping. It's a very dangerous, kind of detrimental health condition. But has anybody heard of email apnea? And people are like, what? And I usually get a couple of snickers. And it's like, yes, there is a recognizable phenomenon referred to now as email apnea, because when we're on our phone or we're on the computer and we're kind of typing and we're kind of intently focusing, we have a tendency to shut down our breathing, just barely sipping air, sometimes actually holding our breath. We're not engaging our diaphragm, we're not taking easy, steady breaths. And if you're constantly being overstimulated and you're constantly have cortisol levels that are up there and your brain is in that fight flight situation, your breathing mechanics are hugely compromised, which has a direct impact to your mental health and your physical health. So if you're maybe not sold on the idea of a mindfulness or meditation practice, maybe you might be sold on the idea of practicing proper breathing mechanics and some of these breathing tools like box breathing or 6x6 breathing. There's another one called 4-7-8 breathing, which is a 4-second inhale, 7-second breath hold, 8-second exhale. That really calms down the body. The box breathing and the 6x6 is kind of like steady state, kind of in the middle, right? But that quick inhale, slow, steady exhale really lowers cortisol, really relaxes the body. And I teach it to my clients when they have difficulty relaxing under stressful circumstances or difficulty relaxing before they go to bed. But there are several. The trick is to develop something to be mindful of your breath, practice it, again, in and out of the nose, into the belly. And you can lay down, you can sit, you can stand, but just being aware of your breathing and practicing it. And again, it is a tool that once it's fostered and developed, you can take wherever you go. And it is something that you can apply whenever you possibly can, going into a big meeting or a phone call or dealing with a stressful event in the moment. So, and then certainly this is the big one, and I always leave it for last on this list, is sleep. I've been doing this a long time, and just for making the numbers and the math really easy, there's 100 people in the room. I ask who here in the room feels like they sleep well each night. On average, I get about 3 to 5 hands. That tells me that 3 to 5% of the room says, yeah, I sleep pretty good. The other 95+%, those people are saying, no, I don't sleep well at all. This is a problem. But yet, if I ask for show of hands, who's ever gone on a diet or an exercise program? Lots of hands go up. The truth of the matter is that I could work with you for a year, give you the best diet and exercise program in the world specifically for you, but if you're not sleeping well, it doesn't work. It's amazing people that exercise a lot and have great diets, but still have stubborn weight loss. Once I get them to rest, relax, breathe, and sleep, that's when the magic happens. It's remarkable. So if anybody takes anything out of this presentation, start investing in sleep, please. The environment, like a dark room, a consistent bedtime, a pre-bedtime routine that is not alcohol, food, and TV. There's a lot there. So anyway, what's in your toolbox and where can you start making some small shifts here? Now, of course, there's a lot of information here, and of course, you might feel overwhelmed that you feel like you have to do it all. I want you to pick one. One might be with nutrition. Just stop drinking sugar, right? Liquid sugar like soda and juice spikes blood sugar and drops blood sugar very rapidly. It's a really big problem. And it's probably the worst thing our industrialized food system ever developed. When it comes to physical activity, it's just set a timer and start standing for 30 seconds, every 30 minutes or so. Just stand and stretch and, maybe do a forward fold, maybe a body weight squat or something, just to kind of get your body moving a little bit. When it comes to the attention practice, is just take a step back, close your eyes and breathe, and just follow your breath for 30 seconds. These are all little things. Just pick one and do it. And just because none of this stuff is stressful. What causes stress is when we try to do too much too quick. New Year's resolutions are stressful. New Month's resolutions, not so much. Take your big goals, take these larger concepts and break them into smaller pieces and spread them out. And that's how you have great success with this type of stuff. All right, so typical behaviors, right? And so, again, just to kind of repeat some of the stuff I've already said, it kind of helps it sink in, is that in modern day environment is we have a tend to avoid or escape our emotions rather than face and address them. Now, I'm not a therapist, but if you have a deeper issue along this and you find yourself going to cigarettes or drugs, alcohol, food, or distracting behaviors like social media and TV a lot, and it's your default, just take a step back before you engage with those things and say, why am I about to do this? What is the feeling I'm feeling right now? And if it's something that you're like, you know what, I can do something about this, well, then I'm giving you the tools for that. If it's something that is a bigger issue, I cannot recommend engaging with a therapist enough. I've seen therapists, especially that time back in 2008, but bigger issues in my life, we need help. Doing all this stuff by yourself, it's next to impossible. Some people got some strong disposition and they can white knuckle it and willpower themselves through anything, but at what cost? But most of us have very, very difficult times staying on, really addressing these things and becoming a happier, healthier person. So finding a coach, finding a therapist, finding someone that can be on your side is huge when it comes to this kind of thing. Again, we have a tendency to want to escape our feelings rather than address them. So again, taking that path of stimulation, distraction, and addiction. And, this is where I'm hoping that I might be able to peel the curtain back just a little bit to kind of reveal to you where your opportunities are, because this is your one shot at life. This is it. And if you're not going to be addressing this, my goal is to help you get to the finish line, right? Be it either retirement or the end of your days on your deathbed in a position of strength and vitality and happiness, because most of us are getting to retirement compromised. We spend all of these years trying to build wealth in our business, but at what expense? You can have your cake and eat it too. You just need to find and create this balance that I'm talking about. And so, we have to foster these fundamental needs of nutrition, move your body, sleep, right? Those are three things you do every day. Everybody on this call eats every day. Everybody on this call moves every day. And everybody on this call sleeps every day. How well you do it is a big volume knob. Now, again, that New Year's resolution approach is you're going from one side and you're taking a 180-degree turnaround. I'm talking about just small changes in trajectory. So if you change your lifestyle by 5%, let's say 10%, and you're like, well, that's not going to do anything. Well, this is what I love about working with financial professionals. What does 8 to 10% do to a portfolio? If you've got a client and they're getting 8 to 10% annual growth every year, right? That's huge, right? And then you also have this compounding interest that over time, this investment that's getting 10%, wow, that's amazing. Same thing goes with your health choices. Think about it. Be logical about this. Think about something that you can do simple every day that's going to have a strong impact. I mean, it's like brushing your teeth. Brushing your teeth every day isn't going to keep you from having well, let me say that again. Brushing your teeth every day is an insurance policy. It is a preactive measure that you do every day to help prevent cavities. Brushing your teeth once a year, not so much, right? It is a small act of preventive maintenance. So where can a small act of preventive maintenance be with sleep, like going to bed at a consistent time or in a dark room? With physical movement, like standing every 30 to 60 minutes, just to kind of stretch out a little bit. It doesn't seem like much, but you do that practice every day for the next 5-10 years, you're on a completely different trajectory, right? And then, nutrition. The two big things with nutrition, I'll just say it right now, is don't drink your calories, right? Like soda, juice, sweetened teas, and stay away from fried foods. Those are the two biggies. And that's a completely different discussion, but maybe I'll give you a little idea of some measures that you can go on with that. So the essentials for well-being, right? We have these really big 3 topics, and I can break each one down and say, well, wherever you are, I guarantee you that there's room for improvement. Like the physical activity side, there's people, it's like, well, Matt, that's not my problem. I go to the gym every day. Well, okay, what do you do? Well, I run on the treadmill, or I run 10 miles every day. Okay, well, this is an aspect that I'm a cyclist. I'm an avid cyclist. I compete and I race. but my yoga, my mobility work, my strength routine is actually just as important as the cardio that I do. A lot of people are imbalanced when it comes to physical activity. And if I could wave a magic wand and just wish one thing on the society when it comes to physical activity, is that we did more resistance work, more strength work, rather than cardio work. Cardio is great, but what happens is that we have a tendency to peg our heart rate, get our heart rate really high, which is great for the cardiovascular system. And yes, it can burn calories in the moment, but it also raises cortisol. It's a high stressor. So if you're already dealing with a lot of stress and anxiety and you're self-medicating with kickboxing classes 5 days a week and running and a lot of cardio, you might be burning the candle at both ends. I can't stress the importance of, again, more resistance exercise like yoga, weight training, bands, body weight stuff, more slow, easy kind of breathing, working on, again, the large muscle groups in the body has a much greater impact on our nervous system. But plus, when you're also developing muscle tissue, you're creating cells that are actually more metabolically active, and you're actually raise your metabolic rate so you burn more calories. Cardio has a tendency just to make us really hungry, and we crave a lot of carbs afterwards, whereas strength work and, say, some good protein creates a better sense of a mental balance. We need both, but I'm more of a, lift things up and go for long walks and maybe run once a week kind of guy, rather than high cardio every day of the week kind of thing. So again, they're all good, but you got to find balance. And again, back to the nutrition, I think I've already kind of given you plenty of points on that. But how about the hydration perspective? We're just not drinking enough water. And a lot of people confuse hunger with dehydration. We should be drinking probably upwards of about 64 ounces of water minimum a day throughout the day. Now, if you're exercising a lot, then that might be a little bit more. And certainly if you're exercising a lot and it's summertime, consider electrolytes. Electrolytes are very important. And so that's another perspective there. But dehydration, not breathing well, and not standing very often is a beautiful recipe for disaster when it comes to the stuff that goes on between your ears. And then, of course, the sleep. And again, I repeat myself on purpose because I'm like a TV commercial. If I say it once and then keep going, sometimes you forget. But sleep, sleep, sleep. The biggest tips here are, one, a consistent bed and wake time, the best to your ability. My typical practice is I try to be lights out, head on the pillow at 10, up at 6. Going to bed at 9 o'clock one night and midnight the next night is akin to 3 hours of jet lag. It throws your circadian rhythm way off, and you're never going to be able to catch up from that. So finding more consistency in your sleep patterns, even on weekends when possible, right? A dark room. Light in the room is very stimulating. Hopefully people on this call are not sleeping with the TV set on in their room, because that is robbing you of your ability to get into deep and REM sleep. And then a pre-bedtime routine. Watching TV and sipping on drinking things all the way up to bedtime, you're really inhibiting your circadian rhythm with the light from the blue light from these devices. And then also you're not able to digest and metabolize food and get good restorative sleep at the same time. So maybe from a nutrition sleep kind of discussion point, you might have heard of things like intermittent fasting. Where I start with my clients is I try to say, no more calories 3 hours before bedtime. So typically by 7:30 at the latest, kitchen's closed. And from that point on, it's like you can have some water or maybe some herbal tea, but no sugar, no cream, no dessert, no potato chips, no pretzels, no alcohol. And it makes a massive difference at your ability to recover. My perspective is that my day starts, my 24-hour clock starts at 9 o'clock at night. Because 9 o'clock at night in that hour before I bed is how I set myself for success mentally and physically to get the best sleep I can. And the best sleep I get is going to contribute to how well I perform the next day. If you have the idea that I start my day at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning and you're building that off of a poor night's sleep, then you're compromised. You're never going to make good food decisions. You're always going to be a little bit more short-tempered, a little bit more frustrated, not thinking as clearly. And then you can see how that can unfold to increasing stress in your life. So back to more of the mindset, because again, the 3 things that we automatically do every day are sleep, move, and eat. But what we don't automatically do every day, and this is the 4th tool that we need to bring into our life to combat this overstimulation of our modern day environment. So again, back to mindfulness and meditation, there's tons of apps available like Calm or Headspace, 10% Happier by Dan Harris, Ziva. I mean, Insight Timer. There's a bazillion different meditation apps out there. Or pick up a book or something, Google search it, do your own, start looking around to see, hey, what's this whole mindfulness meditation thing, and where's my entry point? So because just a few minutes every day can have a massive impact over time. Again, it's an investment that you're going to get a great ROI on. So breathing exercises, again, the box breathing, or just being mindful of breath, in and out, and just feeling your diaphragm expand, focusing more on the exhale than the inhale. Don't breathe deep in, breathe deep out. Activate that diaphragm and just follow your breath and just feel it and just be with it and get out of your brain for a little bit and practice that muscle, the memory a little bit. And again, bring it into your life. But we need to have intent and practice with this. Now, I don't typically read a slide, but I'm going to read this slide to you, right? So here's the promise. A mindfulness practice will reduce your cortisol levels, your primary stress hormone. It'll reduce blood pressure, anxiety, and depression. It will increase your immune response, resilience, and focus, and improve your relationships, especially with yourself. It will also bolster your performance at work and provide inner peace. Tony Schwartz said that. And thousands of clinical studies have proven this over and over and over again. Mindfulness and meditation wasn't something that we needed so much in society 100 plus years ago, but we certainly need it now. This is a superpower that if you can develop it, it will change your life. I promise you. So again, summary, and and all of these things that you're doing is going to help you kind of become more resilient. Lifting weights is a stressor, but it makes you more resilient. Like me having cancer and getting sick and all that stuff that happened to me before, it sucked at the time, but it made me stronger. It made me more resilient. So stressors are important to make you become stronger, as long as you don't wallow in them and go, woe is me, and self-medicate to kind of getting rid of that feeling. The physical activity, we just need to move more. Nutrition, you are what you eat, right? And so think about like not having dessert for breakfast, because let's face it, bagels, cereals, pancakes, waffles, Danishes, French toast, all of this stuff is basically just a big form of dessert, right? Even sugar in our coffee. There's people that have more sugar in their coffee than there's in ice cream, right? And I've always said this, but like a Starbucks, when you go to Starbucks is just a Dairy Queen for adults. Just going to say it. So think about this. And coffee, by the way, can be very good for you at the right dose and at the right time. The problem with coffee is all the sugar and all the stuff that we put in it. The sleep, can't stress that more than enough. Find your step. Where's your stepping off point here? Where can you find something in this presentation, in these 3 steps, where you can just make a small shift, not a 180-degree turnaround, but just a small trajectory change? The attention practice is huge, and then the breath work. These are your tools. These are the aspects of being, fundamentally healthy and happy and vibrant and vitality in our human, being a human being in this world now. You're an athlete. Just tell yourself that because the amount of pressure and stress that's put on your body every day is paramount. It's just so overwhelming that you need to have these things in place in order to be a better version of yourself. Or it's just going to be the typical Western medicine. Western medicine, they don't solve your problems. They treat symptoms, right? Lifestyle is how you address the underlying cause to the issues that you have every day. So, and then challenging yourself more again, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, or parking further away from the entrance. And, if you have the opportunity, take the hard way. I'm in airports every week. I carry my bag. I don't roll it. It's just another form of physical resilience that I'm building through carrying a heavy bag kind of thing, just as a simple example. Anyway, how can I help? So I do have a business here, and there, like I mentioned earlier, doing this stuff by yourself is difficult. I have coaches, I have mentors, I work with people. But one of the things that I've developed is I have a program online. It's a video series. It's going to be launching in the next couple of weeks. I've just revamped it for 2023. And then also I do one-on-one coaching. And so some people that want to take it to the next level, the accountability, have a little bit more specialty addressing, your specific needs. This is where the rubber really hits the road. And I've been doing this for years now with my clients, and it's really, really been a huge impact for me personally, but also the people that I've worked with. And so there's going to be a link in the chat box there. And so that's a link to a free ebook that, it summarizes a lot of these perspectives that I talked about today. And so if you go on there and you shoot me a little email there, you're going to get the free ebook, and it kind of summarizes all these things and hopefully something is there that can help you out. But in short, this is me. I'm Matt Kansy, and I have a book. It's my website, and you can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. And that's it. I really appreciate this opportunity. I hope some of you found some impact and something helpful for you to just take a small shift in your life to be a happier, healthier, more productive version, So thank you. And if there's any questions, I'm here.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. That was fantastic. And as a reminder, if you do have some questions, we got a little bit of time here. We'd be happy to answer them. Type them right in the questions box. Great content, Matt. I can say there's a lot of things I checked on the wrong side of the box. So certainly some good stuff for me to look at and making some enhancements. While we're waiting for some more questions, one quick one here for you. You mentioned a lot about technology and the distracting aspects of it. What's your take on wearables? And is it a good thing or a bad thing?
I think they can be a very good thing. But there's a couple of problems with wearables is that some people have them and they collect all this data and then they don't know what to do with that data. And they can go, oh, yeah, my watch just told me I slept terribly last night. Okay, well, what are you going to do about it? Or, the steps that you've made. Well, what value are all those steps, leading to? I have wearables. I think that they can be very, very impactful, but they're tools. They're not, and sometimes they're just depressing, right? It's like, people just take them off and put them away. They're the hot thing. Everybody wants one. Everybody gets them. Your iWatch is such a capable tool to help you improve your life. But those wearables don't typically then give you solutions to your problems. So that's where someone like myself can come on board and help people out. So I think that they're very, very insightful, especially for sleep analysis. Yeah. Well, on the flip side, not flip side, but another perspective is people becoming so obsessed with the data. That's another potential issue that I've seen people with wearables is that they just kind of get all these numbers and data and then you need to relax a little bit. So, because sometimes that can be a problem.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm avid snowboarder, and with the apps now to track all your vertical, I found myself focusing on the vertical instead of the beauty that I'm standing out there enjoying every day. So that's where it seemed like it could be a similar kind of view of all the wearable technology.
Right.
Another question here. You talked a lot about sleep and the importance of sleep. Obviously, I think we all know that, and consistent good sleep. What about cat naps? And are those good and valuable throughout the day?
Yeah, great question. Yes, napping can be a very valuable, impactful tool. It's all about time and duration. If we're sticking to a typical kind of 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. kind of daily, waking time, the best time to nap is probably between noon and 2 in the middle of the day, and for no more than 20 or 30 minutes. Simply because if you get more than a larger nap, you're going to fall into deeper sleep, and then you could potentially be disrupting the sleep architecture later in the day. So napping can be great and very impactful. Again, usually kind of like after your midday meal, just for 20 minutes, just a quick cat nap kind of thing can really refreshen a lot of people, especially if your nighttime sleep is compromised and not that great.
Yeah, I think, with a lot of advisors and that we work with, especially depending on time zone location, they're either up super early, some could be up later depending on their location. So it seems like that could be a great, powerful tool. Again, if anybody has any additional questions, fire them off in the questions box. A couple quick other things. We're waiting for some more questions to come in. We are recording today's program. We'll be following up with folks. So if there are any things that we didn't get to, both Matt and ourselves over here at Wright Capital are happy to help you with that. And we'll follow up. One other quick thing, a great way I would say you can also help alleviate some stress is by saving time. And that's what we help you do here at Wright Capital. So if you'd like to learn more about how we can help you with that in the financial planning side, reach out to us, jump on our website. All right, another quick question here. Any advice for cell phone addiction? That's one thing I can't seem to deal with. I think we all can accommodate that. I was sitting here and my phone's bouncing off the hooks while you're going through the presentation. I tried not to look at it, but it's tough. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, so, we all suffer from that, right? There's such a stimulating thing. One thing that I started with is I charge my phone outside of my bedroom. I charge it in my office or in the kitchen. You know, come 9 o'clock when I go, you know, my 9 o'clock pre-bedtime routine is no electronic devices. So that's one point. Understanding that cell phone addiction is robbing you of your productivity. You know, like an iPhone, you can see where, you know, at the end of the day, how much time you spent on the phone, and it breaks it down by app or by category of app. And if it's email or phone calls, that's one thing. But if it's Instagram and games and Facebook and stuff like that, or, you know, Google searches and stuff, YouTube, you know, you just have to be honest with yourself that if you're having struggles, I mean, and again, this is one of the problems, is that we self-medicate with it. We're bored. You know, basically you know, we need to find other things in our life to bring value, to spend our time with. But unfortunately, we live these lives that have a tendency to, you know, be filled with boredom. And then we're like, well, I'm bored, let's look at my phone, and become unbored, because they are so overstimulating. I mean, there's little tricks, like you could turn your phone to monochrome and turn off the color. You know, some people have said that that's had a huge impact in taking away you know, the vibrance of the phone and like the impact. It's kind of boring. You know, delete the apps that you're addicted to. And so a lot of apps that are on your phone, you can have on a laptop or a computer. They're a little bit more cumbersome to engage with, and it has to have a little bit more intent. But when they're on your phone, it's just way too easy. There are some apps that you can put on your phone that actually will monitor, or, you know, basically police your app usage. And so if it's like Instagram, which is, you know, one of my downfalls, you know, after 10 minutes, you can set it up, it'll turn the app off. Done. And let's just face it, when you're on Instagram, it's just swipe, 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 and your brain's going, you need to get off this, swipe, swipe, swipe. I need to stop doing this, swipe, swipe, swipe. And then all of a sudden you're like, just stop. You know, and then eventually you just kind of like, I can't take it anymore. But how many times have we burned hours like swiping through Instagram? You need to, you know, develop that, you know, that situation. I mean, when I go out to dinner, you know, with friends or, you know, people, I leave my phone in the car. You know, I don't take the phone into dinner with me, because it's just a distraction. And sometimes it just gives you an opportunity to dissociate. You know, start with charging your phone in the other room, and then maybe start leaving it in places like when you're going to meetings or something. You don't need it in a meeting. You know, people say, oh, well, I have to be attached to my email and my text and my phone. It's like, people can leave a message. Email is meant to be, you know, dealt with maybe twice a day. You know, we shouldn't be treating email like a text box, you know. But that's my own personal experience. But hopefully there might be something there where people can play with to kind of get off of that.
Excellent. All right, one more quick question, and we're going to wrap it up. Maybe not be a short answer, but we'll see what you can do. What's the best kind of diet for a clear mind? Grain-free, paleo, something else?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because as a fundamental, when I work with my clients, I use paleo as a foundation. I mean, there's beyond paleo perspectives, because paleo kind of focuses on nutrient-dense, real food. For a clear mind, there's two perspectives: blood sugar swings, right? So staying away from highly refined processed carbs and sugars that create these blood sugar spikes and drops. And there's other reasons to stay away from those foods. But then also fried foods. Fried foods, the problem with them is they're highly inflammatory to the body. So when you eat foods like French fries and stuff, I don't care about the potato, it's the oils that they're cooked in. And the oils that are in a lot of fryalators and stuff like that actually cause systemic inflammation and inflammation in the brain, believe it or not. And that can have an impact on mental focus and drive. So you need to be thinking about nourishing your body, focusing with more proteins and vegetables, healthy fats. And then carbohydrates should be used as a tool. If you exercise a lot, then use carbs to refuel. But to wake up in the morning to a day that you're going to be sitting down for 10 hours and to be, you know, carb intake, you're basically setting yourself back from the blood sugar swing perspective, but also from the lack of like true nourishment that you're putting into the body.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Matt. Some great stuff. Really appreciate your time. Definitely some takeaways for me. Everybody, you can see Matt's information on the screen there, and we'll be sending him over some your information so you can follow up on questions we didn't get to. We really appreciate your time. Yeah. Feel free to jump on rightcapital.com to book a demo to see how we can help you save a little time. And again, everybody have a great, relaxing, and stress-free rest of your afternoon, hopefully. Thank you, Matt, and thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.